Hey guys, Angus from Spotted Hog Airsoft here with another Airsoft video review for you guys today. Now every day on YouTube I'm hounded with the question of what's a good starter Airsoft AEG, and I always answer the same way. However, ironically, I don't have a video review of that product. Well, that all changes today because we've got the video review of the CYMA CM.028 AK47 Airsoft AEG. Now if you're interested in picking this thing up, there'll be a link down below in the description to SpottedHogAirsoft.com where you can buy it for about $100. Now with that being said, obviously that price tells you this is a pretty affordable AEG for anyone just getting into the sport. How about the other aspects of it? Well, let's hop right into the video. Alright, now hopping directly into the video review, let's start off with what we always do, and that would be external construction. Now of course at that affordable price of about $100, you do have to sacrifice something, and in that case, as opposed to getting a metal body here, you do have a body that's composed of a rather solid and durable plastic. Certainly nothing that I would personally complain about, but hey, some people have to have the metal body, and that might turn a couple buyers off. Personally, I think an advantage to this particular plastic body is the fact that it makes the gun a lot more lightweight, more maneuverable. Probably this AEG weighs around 5 or 6 pounds, so it's a lot lighter, and I like that personally. If you're worried about not having any metal on the AEG, don't be, because essentially everything else is constructed of metal. That goes to include your top cover, your charging handle, your iron sights, your outer barrel, your magazine, your trigger, your fire selector switch, and all the screws that hold the gun together, so you still do get a good mix of solid metal on this AEG. Obviously, the wood furniture here isn't constructed of real wood. It's simply a faux plastic wood. It feels nice, you know, it's got a little bit of a good look to it. Certainly not as impressive as real wood would be, but of course, if you want the real wood, there are plenty of kits out there available if you needed to really upgrade the externals of the AEG to that point. Otherwise, though, they get the job done. They are just constructed of plastic, though. Internally, this gun does have a metal version 3 gearbox. In my opinion, CYMA makes excellent budget internals, and the advantage to the version 3 is they're pretty easy to upgrade. So overall, the internals on this gun are relatively solid, just maybe a little greasy when it comes down to it, like you'd expect a clone to be. Externals, despite the plastic body, are rather solid, and the internals, I really like CYMA. Now hopping directly into the features of this AEG, we come back to that faux wood stock. And the reason I come here is because, in my opinion, on an AEG, there's nothing more important than battery space. And in this case, this is where your battery is stored. In order to access your battery compartment, you simply want to go ahead and pop off the metal butt plate simply by pressing downward, like so. It does require a little bit of force, and when that pops off, you will obviously go ahead and reveal your small type connector. Now the battery that goes in here would be your included 8.4 volt 1200 milliamp NiCad battery. Now this battery is pretty large, obviously with a small type connector, and it does just fit in there. This is about as large a battery as you can fit inside the stock. Not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion, because a nice slender LiPo would easily fit in there if you wanted to run a 7.4 volt out of this AEG. Once that battery is installed, simply connect the connectors, tuck the wires in, and replace the butt plate in order to secure it in place. Now once that battery is installed, you can obviously actually fire this AEG, and in order to control your fire modes, you do have your typical AK47 style fire selector switch located on the right side of the AEG. Now the selector switch has the standard 3 settings: safe up top, full auto in the middle, and semi-auto all the way down at the bottom. This is a pretty nice selector switch. It does require a little bit of force to get it to move between the settings, but that's nice. The only thing I would warn about is that eventually, traditionally with the AK style selectors, this bolt tends to loosen up a little bit and the selector will tend to wiggle around and might switch in between settings. Just keep a close eye on this. As far as the CYMA CM.028's magazine goes, inside the magazine well, there really isn't much wiggle at all. In order to eject the mag, simply push in on the paddle style release, and the magazine will release like so. So be prepared to grab it. The included magazine is your standard AK47 style Airsoft high cap magazine. It's supposed to hold about 450 to 500 rounds, as they say. It works just like your standard high cap. You'd load the BBs through the trapdoor reservoir up top. BBs would feed through here, and also you'd simply wind the gear down at the bottom in order to keep the flow of BBs going. Overall, it's your basic high cap. It feeds like any other, and it works pretty well in this AEG, seeing as how it doesn't have to compete with an incredibly high rate of fire. Overall, it's a good quality, simple mag. As far as your iron sights on the AEG go, they're just your standard AK style sights, and they're pretty accurate to the gun. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at each of them. Your rear sight is adjustable in typical AK fashion. Again, it's that traditional AK rear sight. You'll notice that it does have each of the markings as far as meters or distances goes for aiming engraved rather nicely in there. Just a nice touch as far as detail goes, and it is adjustable simply by squeezing in the sides and sliding this piece forward in order to raise it or lower it. You do have a small slit in the back meant to line up with your front, front sight. As for your front sight, it's just your standard AK front sight. The half circle with the adjustable sight post in the middle that you can go ahead and adjust. Obviously meant to line up with the rear sight when you're aiming. So overall, like I said, the iron sight's just your basic AK style. They're accurate to the gun and they get the job done, which you're going to have to make do because you can't put a scope on this AEG without a mount. As far as the gun's charging handle goes, when you pull it back, you will reveal your AEG's hop-up unit, which is just your standard non-gear style. What it is simply a small tab you'd push towards the back of the gun in order to increase the hop. Overall, the hop-up's pretty effective. It does get the job done, as you'll see in just a few moments here. When you release the charging handle, it gives you an alright clack. Alright, so you heard me go ahead and hint at it there in the hop-up portion of the video. Now it's time for the performance test portion of the video. Let's go ahead and chrono this AEG as well as take a few shots at a target placed downrange. As far as chrono results go, feet per second wise, we saw a very consistent FPS of about 365 to 370. That's great for outdoor games, and also if you really wanted to, depending on what your field chronos with, you could potentially take this thing into CQB. As far as rate of fire goes, off of the included 8.4 volt, we saw about 730 rounds per minute, which as you can see, converted into about 12 rounds per second. So the rate of fire might be a little bit sluggish, but keep in mind, this is off of an 8.4 volt battery. For the accuracy test portion of the video, I set myself up at about 130 feet away and took aim with .25 gram BBs and the same battery used for the chrono. I also took the time to adjust my hop-up so the BBs would fly a little bit straighter and be pinpoint to the target. Overall, semi-auto accuracy was pretty good. The BBs most of the time hit the target, and if they didn't, they stayed right in the general area of that lawn chair. So the groupings were pretty tight, personally, in my opinion. I did notice I had to wind quite a few times, and again, when I have to wind, I kind of do screw up my aim a little bit. Also, on full auto, I thought the accuracy was not as good as semi-auto. I noticed the BBs suffered from what I call the cloud effect. They fly out in a straight line, but they quickly kind of spread out, and then in the end, only a couple BBs hit the target. In fact, I think one burst missed altogether. Otherwise, though, the full auto accuracy was alright. If this was a full-size man coming at you in a game, you probably would have hit him. The accuracy wasn't too bad, personally, from that distance. Alright, so with those final shots being fired there, let's go ahead and hop into the final conclusion of this video review. Now, a quick disclaimer. I'm reviewing this as an airsofter first and a reviewer second. I'm concerned with how this AEG will perform and stand up out in the actual airsoft field, not how good it looks sitting at a table. Personally, I still stand by the opinion I stated at the beginning of this video. This is an excellent airsoft beginner AEG for someone just starting out. They want something affordable with a good performance behind it that's also built well with simple, easy to understand features. And that's exactly what you get with this AEG. And I'm not going to sit here and BS about, oh, this screw isn't exactly tight. I personally don't have an issue with this AEG. For a beginner, it works perfectly fine. Sure, it's not as nice as some of the more expensive stuff out there, but for a beginner, it works absolutely perfectly. The construction is solid. Yes, you get the plastic body. Some people might not like that. Personally, I don't have an issue with it. You get a decent battery space inside the stock, basic features of an AK, such as your sights and selector switch, and you also have this big old magazine down here so that if you were just starting, you have a high enough capacity you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of other spare mags. Also, the performance is pretty nice, and the FPS is consistent and well enough for a woodland-style game, which is probably where the beginners will start off playing. So with that being said, if you're looking for a starter airsoft AEG, I think the CYMA CM.028 is excellent. There's nothing really that I could complain about because it works. And to me, that's important. If I was taking this out in a game as a beginner, get the job done. So with that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe.